Are we here? Are we here?
I think so. After that
Hello,
intro.
everyone.
I
How
feel,
are you?
Hi, everybody.
Thank you for coming out. I appreciate it. So what I kind of did, like, I tried to break up this interview in some kind of, forms, right? So I'm going to call the first thing creatures, right?
I like that.
So the creatures in this book are, we have Karen, Dees, their mom, Anka, and these are the main characters, right? There's plenty of characters. But Chicago and the Art Institute, or rather art itself, are main characters in this book. Yeah. Our protagonist, which is Karen Reyes, which is also the name of a good friend of mine, which she was super excited about. Yeah. As a young girl who portrays herself as her heroes do, as a monster, she journals the story with drawings in her notebook. Her brother Dees is kind of her protector, artist, mentor. Her mother is her stability, and the Anka is the mysterious upstairs neighbor who we learn more about as the thing goes on. My question is...
I'm scared, actually, now. I don't know if I'm going to pass this test. I'm going to try.
My question is, how much of this story is or feels autobiographical?
That's such a great question. I like the quote, none of these things happen, but the story is true. Because I think that's the truth. And Linda Berry has a great quote. She says, I don't know, I can't even read the word. It's like autobiographo-fictional, It's a great quote about what we do. I think it's just really, you take your emotions, you take your character. Karen is definitely me at that age. And maybe you attribute or collect different personalities in the life of your character than were in yours. Or they're combined characters, which is what I did. Dees is definitely somebody whom I loved, who was very good to me, and also not necessarily completely good to me. As book 2 will reveal, Dees has many aspects. So you do this. You cobble something together, and then it starts speaking to you. And the weird thing, and I think a lot of you are probably writers, and you know this, they start to live. And you are surprised when that happens, when they accrete enough spiritual energy that your characters are actually existing outside of you in a way. And everyone who reads the book, of course, adds their brilliant imagination to it, and then it gets more concrete in a strange way.
Karen loves monsters and monster movies and like comics, monster comics. Is that something that is part of you? Is that something?
Yeah. As we share, we have a mutual friend, and he owns a bookshop here in Evanston, a great bookshop, Squeezebox, and he called me, or he texted me yesterday and said, I have 4 Hammer films, and I was like, we got to go. I got to get to them. It's The Curse of Frankenstein. So yeah, no, I'm still an idiot about those movies. I love them. Yeah.
So as a young person growing up, I'm interested in knowing, like, I know what was the thing for me that made me, like, know that I was an artist. Like, I drew all the time as a kid, but there was this one moment when I picked up issue 111 of the X-Men in 1978, and it was this John Byrne artist, and I was like, oh my God, like I was 10 years old, but I was like, what have I been missing my whole life,
Right.
Was there these moments for you?
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah, I would say one of the biggest was, my grandmother would give me Dickens, and she was this little tiny lady whom I did not know was Jewish, actually. I mean, there were a lot of things I didn't know about my grandmother. It was in New Mexico. So she would send me a Dickens book. She was a big reader. And she was a very quiet person. She hid her whole life from us. We really didn't know a lot about her. But she would sort of speak by giving you books. And she would give me a Dickens, and when I read it, I would get another. Well, it just so happened they were all illustrated, so that you'd have these amazing etchings, engravings in the book. And I was swept away by this concept. Now, this was before I really got much more than Mad Magazine. So I had Mad Magazine, and then I had Dickens, and they're not really as different as you would think.
Right. That's a great combination.
Yeah, I know. I was lucky.
So were you already drawing at that point, or did that spark the
I
draw?
did not walk until I was about 2.5 years old. Because I had severe scoliosis, which my parents at the time did not realize I had. They didn't know why I wasn't walking. I just didn't do it. And I was kind of lucky. At that time, I lived in New Mexico. I was born here, but we moved there. And I had wonderful cousins who would sort of pick me up and carry me around. And so I thought, this was great. I was a pasha, right? But what I did do, starting at probably, I don't know, maybe 16 months or earlier, is I started drawing. So I experienced the world by drawing in a way that I couldn't by walking. And I, developed a hunger for observational drawing. So, I think I was drawing before I was walking.
So you were in New Mexico at the time?
Yes.
And when did you come here after that?
I was 6 years old, actually.
So after that, Karen goes to the Art Institute to see the paintings all the time. Is that something that you did as well? Yeah.
I had never seen Chicago. I had a father who absolutely was a Chicagoan, loved this city. He was the son of a furrier who had made coats for people like Potter Palmer, and he knew Capone, his father had, and probably paid protection money to him and liked him, actually, which was crazy. But anyway, he loved this city. He was a born and bred Chicagoan. And when he took me to the Art Institute, it was an awful lot like, I don't know if you've ever gone to a family gathering and one of your relatives have sort of said, well, you don't know Uncle Sid, and they push you towards Uncle Sid because Uncle Sid's great. My father did that with paintings. He loved the painters of the museum, and there were just certain things that he just kind of, no, you go spend some time with Delvaux. And so I would just sort of, well, okay, and I'd go and I'd sit there and I'd draw these paintings. And that was my introduction. So.
That is one of the things that I am so amazed by, or I'm not amazed, more like inspired by, is that the life that the paintings have as characters in the book, like that Karen would go and seek. Okay, so for me, right, looking at artwork, oftentimes, especially historical work, it asks questions to me. We have to surmise what the painter was thinking by historical context. You're like, oh, well, I guess this is what this was about, that sort of thing. But the idea that you would seek these paintings out to get information is brilliant. I mean, yeah, for me, I just love that it's a resource. And I think that
I hope that happens more. I hope when I was making the book, I didn't know if anybody'd ever see it, and when it got lost in Panama, I thought, well, I'm going to be the greatest graphic novel in Panama. A graphic novelist, I'm going to be famous in Panama. But I didn't know if anybody was ever going to get the book or if it was going to get finished. There were so many questions, but I thought while I was working on it, if anything comes of this that would make me really and truly grateful is if people used paintings, used the great art that we have, and we have so much of it, if they used it to understand the world, and if they really spent time with it and thought about it, and allowed it to create channels in their mind whereby they could describe experiences by using these paintings. And it started happening, so I'm pretty happy about that. Yeah,
to me, there's so many kind of layers to the book that one of the strong, there's a strong arc, like a story that happens that you're following and you're kind of like, ooh, when are we going to find out more about this, right? But there are all these messages inserted in there. One of the strongest things about art being like a character that you can interact with and you can engage with, and they can give you information, and it's absolutely beautiful. And the renderings, the drawings of the art are really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
It's my favorite thing to do, other than the horror covers, and they're so similar.
All right. You draw.
Sometimes,
you draw out the similarities. You can see the similarities. So, how did you choose this medium, like ballpoint pen.
It shows me kind of the way, a monster will, like in a dark alley. It really beat me up because I thought, well, I'll just do it all in ballpoint pen. I remember the day I decided that. And I remembered it for 5 years afterwards, and with 16-hour days, and with my hand just cramping up into a claw, which of course I like a little bit, but
Because it looks cool.
It does.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's horrifying, but yeah. Anyway, I was crazy to have done that. It was a very stupid thing to do, and I'm sorry. It was insane. It takes a long time to do it, but there's a lot of joy in it, crazily. So yeah.
So in doing something with this ballpoint pen, right? It's kind of atypical to have the whole thing in ballpoint pen and to look like it was done in a spiral-bound notebook. But then also the structure of the book itself, the way that it reveals information, breaks from your standard comic book revealing of the narrative. Was that something that came natural, or is that something that you had to think about? Because it's really, to me, the thing that drew me in the quickest was that it was an unusual format.
Let me put these on so I could see people better. Can I? I kind of think I can. Hi. If it was a smaller crowd, I'd ask you all what your horoscopes are or what your astrological signs are, because I get into that.
You can yell at a horoscope.
Can I?
Yeah.
And they'll raise hands, like, because I would love that. Like, he's a Scorpio. I've had to find that out. And then I knew a lot of things. Any Scorpios here? You got birth? Oh, you're so sexy. Scorpios are sexy people. You guys are just, okay, just for me. Leos? Are there Leos here? Okay, all right. We won't fuck with you. We won't do that because we know you're tough. We just are. Cancers? You're crying right now. I know that. I'm already sorry. I'm already sorry. We've moved you. I know we have. So I don't know. Sagittarius, you're so imaginative and we don't believe anything you say because we can't, because we would be in trouble if we did. Aries, you're going to lead us out of here and to safety if there's an episode of any kind. Oh, all right. Anyway, what was the question?
It was about the format.
What was the format? Oh yeah, the format is. I did not. Okay, you can keep a secret, right? Okay. I'm joking because this is being recorded, so everybody gets to know this if they want to. I don't know if they want to. The format is called I Did Not Know What the Was Doing. Honest to God, the format is called Let Me Just Do This Thing the Way I Want to Do It because I'm insolent, and I just did that. And it was, this is the way it has to be. The thing kind of said to me, this is a notebook, it has to be done this way. And, not to you guys, but maybe to comics a little bit. There was a little bit of that. It wasn't that I didn't love comics, I do. It's that I probably couldn't have stayed in those little boxes if I tried. They really frustrate me. And I'm just telling you that. So if you tell somebody else, they'll hurt me probably, because that's a bad thing. But it's okay. Worked out okay. Lots of people like it. So I didn't totally bomb, which I was not sure. Well, you get 800 pages into a book that was supposed to take you a year and a half and be 200 pages, and you've done it the way I did it, you have to ask yourself, am I insane? And that's not resolved yet.
Yeah, it's still debatable.
We're not sure there. But after he sings drinking songs, the sitcom drinking songs, you're going to say it's both of them.
Okay.
So we'll share that.
So for the other creators in the audience, I do think that this is an important thing to note. Like for me, to hear someone say that they know what they were doing is a vote of confidence and encouraging, because I think that not knowing what you're doing is a great space to be in. So yeah. I can't help but make sure I point that out.
It's a freedom. Yeah. Well, I do want people to have freedom. I think that they should trust their instincts. I think we were born with a message inside of us. I think we have magnets in us that attract stories to us. I think we are supremely creative in a way that we should trust. And I think we should give everything we've got to that. So, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that there were some questions in my head when I was thinking about this interview that I was like, well, when you presented this as an idea, like as the work,
Yeah.
was there pushback from the format? Like, did someone say, well, this looks great, but can we do this to it? Can we do that to it? Or did they appreciate and understand the work from the get-go?
The original publisher, they're wonderful people. The woman who originally bought this book is a Harvard professor, and she liked the book. She did not know anything about comics, so I was like, she was like, this is right? And I was like, sure, of course it is. How we do it?
This is right.
I so swear to God, I was so bad, just like, yeah. And she's brilliant, but didn't know comics. So, we got that over on her pretty good. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. I didn't really. That's a joke, kind of. But, so, I think they liked the way it looked initially. And I don't know, I had something I was going to say to you, and then I forgot what it was.
Was it about, like, I'd asked about whether the format, was there any pushback or?
Oh, no. The pushback, I wasn't edited. It was sort of a weird experience. It was like being an auxiliary branch of the CIA and like being out there undercover, because I was never spoken to. I was in deep cover as a writer. Nobody ever said, yeah, we got your 500 pages. Well, there wasn't 500 pages. You got your 50 pages. They didn't even tell me that. They didn't edit it. They didn't give me any feedback. I mean, they just said, she was very nice. She just said, just let Emil take care of it.
Wow.
Yeah, that was awesome. It ended up being the best thing in the world. But there were times I thought, what am I doing? Nobody even tells me, and nobody had read it. So nobody knew anything about it, really. So I would say that's a great place to be, and scary as hell. But if you're an artist, you probably want that. I hope you get it if you have something kind of idiosyncratic that you intend to bring out in the world. Get that time where people leave you alone and let you just do it.
Okay, so that section was kind of called curses.
The curse that's a blessing?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I like that.
I didn't announce curses ahead of time, but that's curses.
Well, they don't do that. They don't
Okay.
get announced generally, do they? Unless you're.
You have to have time to notice that this is what's happening.
No,
Okay.
I love the concept of curses.
Okay, and
Yeah,
so
thank you.
There is a tragic event that happens in this story. I am trying to be generous because not everyone maybe everyone has read the book. But I don't want to spoil anything, but I still also want to talk about the book, right? So there is a tragic event, and we learn a lot about Anka and her backstory. What really touched me in that was that her backstory was so layered and nuanced and informative, scary, touching, like all of those things. Mm-hmm. Like it was beautiful. Like I was enjoying the book. Mm-hmm. I was enjoying everything, learning about D's and learning about everything, right? But when we got to the backstory, the tape of the backstory, I was like, oh my goodness, we are going there. We are getting deep. We are like touching the heartstrings here.
I heard you.
You heard that?
I swear to God, sometimes I'm like at night, I hear people reading the book.
Right.
And it's like, they get to a part and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I got to that part. When I got to that part, I was like, what the? This isn't a comic book. This is a book. This is like something else, right? I told Emil that I grew up on comics, right? I grew up reading comics, but so there's no like I have no bias, right? But when I talk about this, I just say it's someone that created a book because it seems to break out of the categories and give me information on multiple levels. So I think my question is, when we got to that kind of historic narrative, like the narrative that takes place in history, did you have to do a lot of research for that? Like, how did you go about structuring that part of the book?
Yeah, definitely. I had a lot of I had stacks and stacks of books that I read in order to be able to understand that time period. The initial research came because if you live in this area, which I'm sure most of you do, you know that we are this is where an awful lot of survivors live. And I grew up in a neighborhood where an awful lot of survivors were. And I knew many of them, and some of them better than others. But I began to hear these stories, and one person in particular, who told me about a life that would not have made it into the history books. And I was amazed. I was really shocked by what Berlin was between the wars, the Weimar years. And so I began to do a lot of research. And then I found amazing things, like I could, because of eBay, used to be so wonderful. I don't know if it is now, but I used to, go and I type in German or Weimar, and I'd come up with photographs taken during that period of time. So I saw a lot of things. And yeah, the research was like profound.
Yeah.
It was a lot more than went into the book. There's a lot outside.
You have a lot of
still
stuff that
never went in. Yeah.
Will that find its place in other?
It will.
Okay.
There will be auxiliary things that will happen.
Excellent. We're in the ghastly and horrific part of the thing.
Is this when you should sing yet? No,
Oh,
not yet.
no. Well, it is ghastly to hear me sing.
No, it's not. He's so good.
And horrific.
He's so good, and he does a spot-on Cockney accent. I wish I could do it as well. You don't want to do it?
I can do one.
Okay. Do we want him to? Yeah, we do.
Okay, so the premise of this is that when I was on tour with my band Trenchmouth a long time ago, you need to take up space. Like we have a long drive, and so I decided that I would start singing 70s or /80s TV show theme songs with British accents. And I found out that they all, if they work, they will sound like a British drinking song. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the Brady Bunch. Are you ready for it? Okay. Here's a story of a lovely lady who is bringing up 3 very lovely girls. All of them had hair of gold, like her mother, the youngest one in curls. All right. Thank you. So that was ghastly and horrific.
It was good.
Oh, so spectral, right? Which is like mysterious and ghostly, right? So I think one of the things that hovers around the story are these like specters, like literally specters and ghosts hover around the stories.
Sure.
For sure, right?
Yeah.
And one of them I really I was drawn into was the one in the graveyard after the brownies. Was it brownies or cookies? Yeah, that was a great character. I loved her. But the specters.
She's a real person.
Oh really? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the actual person.
She's the first she's the reason we have the term private eye. She was the reason she kept such a good eye on Lincoln as a Pinkerton detective, that she was the person that earned that. I love the fact that she was a woman too, and the first female detective of note.
So keep your eye out for her if you have not read.
Yeah,
the narrative.
she's buried right by us, and she will, drop some acid. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, because this is recorded. So anyway, don't drop any acid, but maybe, I don't know. Anyway.
The apparitions that I speak of are family secrets, the specter of death, the fears and pains and confusion of sexuality, and the horrors of racism. So these are specters that float around the whole book. Was there, in constructing the narrative, were these points that you wanted to make, did they unfurl naturally? Or when you were thinking, I have this large narrative, but I want to place this one in here, and I want to make sure that I hit this point or hit this point. I'm just curious.
Well, all of those things were things that if you grew up in the 1960s, and I'm sad to say if you grow up now, these are things that we are dealing with, things that we're facing. I faced mine at various moments with my friends. I had a very diverse group of friends, and so I saw the world through their eyes. And I would say that some of the experiences that occur in the book were experiences that I personally I had, or friends of mine had. And we live in that country, we live in this place. These are the things that if you're going to talk about growing up, you're going to talk about experiencing. So, I mean, it was a natural thing for that to be there.
And how do you feel about some of those things in relationship to today? Like, I feel like, well, I won't answer the question myself. I'll just ask you. Okay, so within the film, I'm sorry, that was good. Within the book.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Godspeed. Yeah, let's see if that happens.
Within the book, the issues around racism are, to me, just as poignant, pointy, prickly, and difficult as they were in the time period of the book.
Yeah, isn't that something?
It's something, yeah.
I didn't really know how clearly in focus those things were going to be when I was writing the book. I mean, think about 6, 7 years ago. But unfortunately, and sadly in many ways, the rise of neo-Nazism and many of the issues that we're dealing with today with, summarily the police executing innocent people in the streets, or in their cars or wherever. These were not things that were always in the news at the time I began the book, but they were things that mattered to me in terms of the baseline racism that this country is founded on. I mean, it's just the truth. We were founded on genocide. We were founded on murder. We were founded on slavery. These are the things that built us as a nation, and we could heal from those things if we were willing to face them, and I think that's a big part of what the book is saying. But the only way to heal from them, the only way to do that, is to really look straight at it and say, this is where we are, this is what we are facing as a nation, this is what we've always faced, and what are we going to do about it?
Do you think of yourself as a political artist?
I don't know that anybody isn't a political artist, although maybe somebody who writes a pop song about somebody else isn't. I don't know. I mean, I guess I am, in so much as if politics is about the appreciation or the estimation of where power lies, and I don't know. The word politics has such a strange connotation in a culture where our representatives are all bought from the moment that they run. I don't know what it really means. But for me, politics, it doesn't mean as much as the truth in me relating to you, giving you something that you maybe think about. And maybe in that way I'm political. I don't know. I can't say.
Yeah, I think that I understand that. I understand.
Well, you can get ideas through.
Yeah.
You can get an idea. A character of yours in a book can say something that you can't say, or that maybe even your number one protagonist can't agree with, but it can get put out there. And some of this stuff is wild. Like, you can propose ways to solve everything in fiction, and why the hell not, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have a question about the book. When I was finished the book, I wanted more, which is a great feeling, right?
Yeah.
I assume that we're moving forward, and there will be more information to happen.
Let's hope we are. No, we really are. I have an apology to make to those of you who are waiting for the second book. I am working very hard to, okay, if you go and don't do this, please, but I'm telling you, so you might. Oh, I'm such an idiot. If you go and somebody's telling you they have the second book and they have some version of it online because it's gotten crazy out there, it's not really the second book. It's what the second book was 4 years ago. So trust me, don't spoil it for yourself. It's not there. It's at home on all the walls of my apartment, because that's literally how it is. Yeah, it's another 400-plus page book, maybe more.
Well, that's exciting. Did you know that story, or did you have to break up a large story?
Yeah,
you had to break up a large story.
It was 800 pages, and it was broken in half. Some people say maybe they're not happy about that. I'm sorry. There is a cliffhanger. Comics is about cliffhangers. I say that, but I don't know. And I just did it,
Yeah.
and then I had a justification for it. But anyway.
Out of my own curiosity, you say that the pages are on the walls. Can you just, I mean, I don't know if this is difficult, but can you tell give me an overview of how you work as an artist? In terms of like, do you? I know that there are people that are very meticulous. You know, like a Chris Ware is very meticulous.
Oh, I know.
It seems like I've seen clips of how he works.
Oh, I know.
Everything's clean, blah blah blah.
I know.
Is there any window into your process that we could have?
Ants figured very importantly. We had an infestation of ants, and they were crawling up my legs to get to moisture. I'm sorry. It was horrifying. It was horrifying this summer. We had no air conditioning. I'm just totally milking it out, but it's true. I live in a terrible place. My apartment is in horrible shape. I can't tell you. I mean, Chris Ware, have you ever met him? You know, he's brilliant. He's very funny, and he's very neat. You can tell because his shirts are starched. Mm-hmm. It's crazy how organized I'm sure he is. He knows every Charles
Schultz
thing is like he has a particular drawer with, like a die-cast mold, like boom. Everything is like that in his world, I bet. But mine is not. I do not have a good working method. I am not organized. Everything goes to hell regularly. There's a lot of, it's just not, it's like I'm an Italian driver as an artist, I think. Sorry. I just mean, like, look at that, I do a lot of that.
Well, what's the ratio? Do you throw away a lot of stuff, or do you?
No, I throw away nothing. That's the problem.
Okay.
I go to the Goodwill, I see things that are really inspiring to me, and then I completely forget about why they were inspiring to me, but I still have them. So there's like a lot of crazy stuff that I own. And it might make it into the book.
The next book? Yeah.
Okay. It's actually being, like...
You're compiling it. So if nothing gets thrown away, right? Mm. You say that there was no editor, right? Mm-hmm. But you, of course, have to edit.
Oh, yeah.
So you have pages, and do you go like this? This works,
no,
this works, this works?
I swear to God, my dead father tells me what is wrong and right. The same guy that brought me to the museum, he's around. And I'll have a dream where he'll come and he'll go, you don't want to go that direction. You're right, I don't. Or I'll just be working, and he'll go, why are you going to do that? Oh. I swear to God, I mean it. He was a big part of the editing process.
No, wonderful.
Yeah, it was lovely. It really was. It was great to be able to rely on somebody with great spiritual knowledge. That means we're in trouble.
No.
Oh, okay.
She hasn't told us we're in trouble.
Good. Oh, good, okay. Free selling of excitement. Ooh, we're in trouble.
So I have the question of the book is doing well. People really like it. How does that feel? How does that change the way you think about your work and the work that comes from this point on?
Well, yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, sometimes if I do something that I feel went over well, then it changes my perspective about the next thing. So that's why I'm asking.
That's the great thing about being old. You know what I mean? Is that it doesn't exactly change it because you're ornery, as my grandmother would have said. Mm-hmm. I'm ornery. I still want what I want out of the book, and maybe more so because there's a bigger audience. I want it to be better for them. I'm going to hold out for things to be more realized. But and the gratitude. The other thing you feel when you get old enough is you feel gratitude all the time. You're grateful for everything. You're grateful for being able to get out of your chair. You're grateful you didn't fall down those stairs. You're grateful that, just a lot of things. I'm really grateful for the warmth that the book has received from you. I'm really, really grateful.
Okay, we are just about at audience question time, Q&A part. But I did have a question. Are there any characters in the book which character in the book brought you the most kind of joy bringing into the world?
Great question. Different joys for different reasons.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I love Anka very much, and her life gives me a lot of even though it makes me very sad, it gives me joy to realize it and on the page. Of course, I love Karen very much, although she's angry at me right now because I'm making her do things in the second book she didn't want to do. Yeah, we'll work it out. I had a really hard relationship with Sandy because she was actually based on a child whom I knew and who did not survive. So that's actually caused me some problems. I almost didn't finish the book because I got really, really depressed. And I didn't know why I was depressed. And then that gentleman down there, Kurt, he said, well, tell me what this is. And I said, well, I described why I couldn't finish this part. And that was like the bottleneck. The book was bottlenecked. And I told him about this going to this birthday party. And I brought I brought this bubble gum gift. And she ate all the gum because she was hungry. And yeah, I'll get really emotional about it. And I had to cry for 3 days, and just be really depressed and really sad and to do some praying. And then I was able to just say, I can honor her by doing this and making her a character here. And so that's what I did. But, so there's different things, different characters. Dee's, of course, I love because he's such a whore. Forgive me for saying it like that. I love his sex positivity. That's the correct way to say that.
Right,
I know.
Right.
And I love him. Yeah, I love him very much.
Yeah. I actually had that was my bonus question, and now I know the answer to that.
Is Sandy real?
Yeah.
I love you that you did that. This is like the moment where we find out if Decker is a replicant. Replicant.
Yeah.
Is Sandy real? I love it that I gave you that question out of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now you know. I'm sorry. Well, you don't fully know.
I don't fully know, yeah.
Ah.
Okay, are we up for some questions from the audience?
Oh my God, fake it.
Hi, Emil. What's your horoscope?
Oh, hi. Is that Lisa? Hi, Lisa. I'm a Leo like you. Okay, all right, good. We'll get together. We'll create a nuclear explosion of Leo-ness. Yeah.
One of the things I loved about this book was that I felt compelled to move forward, but it was hard to leave a page behind because there was so much on it. I wanted to look at every centimeter. I just wondered how a page like that one, Dees is a great artist, evolves. Where does it start? How do you know when it's finished? I mean, I don't know.
It's all about love. I say this to people who do this or anything. Do the thing you love the most, the drawing you love the most to do, and you know what excites you, and then just keep going with that excitement, that joy, and let it happen. Keep putting it out there. There comes a moment where you just topped off. You got as much joy on a page as you're going to get, and you feel it. You feel like, well, let me save some for the next page. And then, but you're right. It's about joy, and I'm really glad when that comes through. So thank you for that. Thank you for spending the time with that.
Hi, I heard that the writing of this book, the creation of this graphic novel, came either out of or in conjunction with a particularly difficult personal time in your life. And I heard this on a podcast, so I hope I'm not asking an inappropriate question. But could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I have to ask you, which one? I've had so many, and I think that's only been a blessing. Are you talking about disability issues, or it was just like somebody said, oh, that poor biatch had a rough time. Is that what?
Directly related to this career, or you had said at some point, out of this dark time for you.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, I was when I was, you probably have heard, right over there at Lighthouse Beach, I was bitten on this leg by a mosquito, and the bite turned black, and I got a rash all over my body. And I thought, well, this is strange. I was 40. My daughter had told me, don't go to that party. My daughter's really psychic. And I said, oh, kid, it's going to be fine. No, it was not fine. 3 weeks later, I was paralyzed from the waist down. I lost the use of my right hand. and it was just West Nile virus. So yes, it was a long road back. I was very fortunate, blessed. A beautiful man at the Art Institute, Scott Ramon. I don't know if you know Scott.
Don't know.
Oh, he said, come on, I wheeled down in my wheelchair, and I thought, I can't draw anymore, which was a fairly large loss for me, but I'm going to make films. I'll be a director, or I'll be a writer. And he helped me get a scholarship. So I was 40 plus years old in a wheelchair going to the Art Institute, and it was a gas. It was great. A wonderful thing that happened to me. And I regained, I had been a sculptor, and I had this exercise I did, but I still don't have the manual dexterity in my right hand. But I worked on it very hard while I was there. And so this book is part of that. It's part of the work.
The question I wanted to ask was, I've read in some separate account that I read that you and your daughter worked together quite a bit artistically, and I'm wondering about if you have any comments on artistic exploration that happens between a parent and a child, and especially when it is used to explore the darkness and brutality of humanity.
Well, knowing as I did that my daughter was going to be the model, but she is the model for Anka, I also knew that there were issues in Anka's life that were really a concern to me, and we had a lot of talks about what does this mean? I mean, does this mean, are you comfortable with this? And she was excited about it. I think she's even more excited now because it seems like the world sort of has just said it loves her as Anka. And it's strange because she became even more like her. I imagined what my daughter would look like older, and she's oddly very similar in some ways. In terms of collaboration, the extent of our collaboration was her modeling and her encouragement. She was very encouraging. What does it mean in terms of, I think that families have to deal with really tough things, and they almost seem like there's a theme that a family will have to deal with. My family's no different. I suspect yours are the same. If you look back all the generations, you start to see how these things played back all the way. If you went back to wherever your family was, whatever village, shtetl, whatever, you probably will find your ancestors dealing with a lot of the things that you are right now. I think that that's something that happens. So the things in this book had meaning to both of us in many ways. And I think we're becoming aware, as a result of some of the recent revelations regarding Hollywood, we're becoming aware of how difficult it is to be female, how much abuse there is that women suffer. So I think this book does underscore some of that, and I don't know what more to say about that, except that I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that those things are going to change. We're going to be a better country because of these things that we're realizing we are. So.
Emil, thank you so much for this book.
Oh,
Several decades ago,
welcome.
I was an art student at a state university here in Illinois. And when I turned in my ballpoint pen drawings, I was told, you can't make art with office supplies. Go get some art supplies. After seeing your book, about 10 minutes into it, I went to Office Max and got about $70 worth of ballpoint pens.
Yes, I'm so happy.
And I'm wondering, you seem to, in this particular drawing up here, is there a lot of gel pens involved? Or do you like to stick with the standard Bic?
These are pretty much standard Bics. I did not really use gel. There were a couple of brush pen pages, which I feel are a betrayal to the concept and probably will replace in the 4th edition. Yeah, it's all Bic pen.
Well, thank you so much for that.
Well,
just
thank
wondering if
you.
you have a secret store where you get these, because
I order them online
really
by the
shoving
gross.
those gel pens on me, I gotta say.
I order them online by the gross. I swear to God.
Wow.
I probably could create a small children's playhouse out of all the discarded pens. So.
Thank you.
Hi, yeah. One of the things that I actually picked up on when I was reading the book was that Karen seems to have a certain synesthesia in the way that she sees the world, and she's kind of talking about the smell of colors or the taste of things, of images. I was curious if this was something that you yourself experienced, and if this had an impact on the way that you were, creating the art for this book.
I definitely had that as a kid, and then I sort of lost it, and I found my daughter had it then. It was really strange. She had it, and I would experience the world through her, remembering how she would experience, or how I would experience things similarly. Like she would say, "He's so green," or I mean, you know what I mean? Like, and I would think that is exactly what he is, And I realized I wanted Karen to have that too, because it was a way. And I still have it when I go to the Art Institute. When I see great work, I still have I find it delicious. I mean, it's an experience of taste for me.
Does music ever play a portion into the colors you choose, the characters and their characterizations that come out?
That's a great question. I am one of those people who will listen to a song over and over again until everyone around me wants to kill me. I will get the same thing. There's a mood in this song or this record, album, that I need, and I just keep sucking the juice out like a big-tongued vampire. Recently it was Coco Taylor and Willie Dixon singing Insane Asylum. If you can hear that, it's a killer of a song. There's just, do you know the song? Oh, you're going to have to. You're going to do a great
version of it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I think it's amazing. Yeah, and there are other things. I mean, I'll be honest, I love Queen. I will listen to Queen, I will listen to Elton John, I will listen to, 70s, 80s rock, and I listen to a lot of 1960s stuff. And amazingly, 1960s stuff was important. So in the second book, there will be music mentioned that you can then, I might create a playlist so that as you're reading the book, you'll get this experience of the music of the time, which will be important. So it's a great question. Thank you.
Time for one more question. Anybody?
I've noticed that you create monsters in your books, so I was asking if you could be any supernatural creature or monster, what would you be?
That's such a great question. That might be my favorite question of my whole life. Because that's like, I spend a lot of time thinking about that. I really was I was a big werewolf fan when I was a kid. And then you get to a point where it's just too obvious. You get old enough, you get hairier. It's like not as flattering. And then you kind of start looking at that vampire, and you think, the vampires are kind of slick. I like them. I mean, they smell inhuman, and they have. Last night I had a dream. Vampires have giant cow's tongues in this dream.
See that timing? You see that timing?
Yeah. Oh my God, that was beautifully done. Yeah, so I'm kind of, more going there. This whole revelation about the flying cryptids in Chicago, I'm very excited. If you're here, just come up at the signing. I really think we'd probably know him or her, because apparently they're 7 feet tall and they have burning red eyes. You got to look at the cover of the Reader. They wrote about him in there, and cops have seen this. There's been like 100 and something sightings of this flying humanoid cryptid with burning red eyes. I really literally am standing in the parking lot at night going, come on. Apparently they listen. They listen to your thoughts. Is this not awesome? They speak to you telepathically. I want this so bad. I mean, of course, when I'm standing in the parking lot, whizzing on myself, crying, I might be saying something else completely. But maybe not. Maybe I'll have courage. Just wish me courage in that moment. That's what I want.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Damon.